Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news, but we're starting off talking about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Is he running scared? Does he have an identity? Is he the new Jose Mourinho? Are we focused on short-term goals instead of long-term goals to protect managers, coaches, players' career when we should be building out the Manchester United way? Lots to get into. I've read lots of today. I've read lots of your comments from this morning about where we are, Manchester United, and I would say the vast majority of people at the moment are concerned. They're not happy, and they do mention Jose Mourinho, and they do mention Louis van Gaal, and they do mention this defeatist attitude in the big games, and they do mention this obsession with favourites who aren't fit to lace the boots of what a Manchester United should be, where you've got limited players who run around a lot but get championed by a manager who seems lost in the job. Are these fair? I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair. I don't. I really don't. I think that in the time that Solskjaer... just take this season, for example. Two of my favourite performances I've seen of Manchester United in recent years were the Leipzig and PSG results. And I thought that PSG result in the autumn was fantastic. Tactically, first 60 minutes we were as good as PSG, and then in the last half an hour we brought Pogba on and we took the game away from them in a total formation change. I'm sad that we don't see that very often, but I would implore people to watch that Paris away game against Tuchel, against Neymar, against Mbappe for an hour. We played very, very well, and then in the last half an hour he made a substitution and changed his tactics within game. I don't think we see that enough from Ole, but I've seen things that I haven't seen under Jose or under Van Gaal before. I also think at times we've played really good football. As I often mention the game at Goodison Park before Christmas, where we played Eric Bailly, we played the high line, we pressed the life out of them. We didn't actually score in that first half an hour, which was disappointing, but we played really good on the front foot, and I think players enjoy that. I don't think we're getting the best out of our players. I do think that Ole's running scared, and I'll tell you for why in a minute. And I do think that he does himself a disservice by having to, quite rightly, he has to. Well, he doesn't have to, but he will face questions from fans and the media about his similarity to Jose Mourinho over the coming weeks and the past few weeks as well. I've read it a few times. Those similarities are valid, but in my personal opinion, I think Ole plays into that himself when he doesn't need to. I think he is very different to Jose Mourinho. And it's interesting because when you look at where we've played 26 games, right? We've got 50 points. We are 12 points off Manchester City, and our goal difference is 21. This time 3 years ago, after 26 games under Jose Mourinho, we had 56 points. We had 6 more points under Jose Mourinho this time 3 years ago after 26 games. And Manchester City had 69, which is 7 more points than what they've got. So we're pretty much in the same position. 56 for 69 is a 13-point gap. 50 for 62 is a 12-point gap. So we're second place, 12 points behind Man City after 26 games. Mourinho 3 years ago was second place, 13 points behind Manchester City. And we know how that went. The gap just got bigger. And we ended up second, and Mourinho said it was the one of the best things of his career. But we were miles off first place. And also, Mourinho had a better goal difference on 33. Better managers have come back before Ole and failed with the squad and lack of backing. We need a 200 million summer if we realistically wish to dethrone City. If we don't get that, we might get Pep, but still beat at second, says Angie S. And also, hi Mark, do you like Erasure? What's your opinion on Marcus Llorente from Atletico Madrid? What says Rifleman? Well, I do like Erasure, and I think Llorente is a good player. I don't think Manchester United are going to look at him. But... look, I saw Gary Neville talking about this. Love the content, Mark. Keep it up, says Braden. Thank you very much. Please subscribe, by the way. We're on this road to 1 million. It's getting closer, so please subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Gary Neville said that Manchester United are better now than they were under Jose, and that they've got a better chance of winning the title than they did under Jose, and that this 20-game unbeaten run that we're on away from home is something that's really good. Where's the Sunday show with Beth and Ricky? Andrew, maybe take a look at your diary and see what day it is. So yeah, I think that it's interesting there. I'm just going to say what I think, because I always do. I think Solskjaer's running scared. I don't think he'll admit it. Why would you admit it? But I think he's running scared. And I think it's interesting that this unbeaten run we're on, is it not a bit of an arsehole now? Because I remember, you remember Liverpool, it's not Liverpool, remember Arsenal on their Invincible run, and they did, that season they did draw 12 games. The Invincibles drew 12 games out of 38, nearly a third of the games they drew. And the reason for that was because they just became so obsessed with being invincible that it plays on your mind. And I'm starting to think that this away run now is another thing that is actually not a great thing, because we're going into these away games now, especially against the better teams, and it's like, we've got to keep this run going. Also, we're in second place at the moment. He hasn't got his contract until the summer. He's that situation with Chelsea yesterday. If you said to Solskjaer, you can take a draw, or you can roll a die, you can flip a coin, head or tails. If you win, it's heads. If you lose, it's tails. He's going to take the draw, isn't he? Many of you would probably take the draw, but I think he is running scared. I think he is playing. He is playing the percentage game. He is playing the Mourinho game, I suppose, in a way, but not in the way Mourinho played football. I disagree with that. The way Ollie sets us up is different to the way Mourinho set us up. There is an emphasis on individuality, which Mourinho wasn't really about. There is an emphasis on moving the ball quicker when we can do, which Mourinho wasn't really about. But there are similarities in the way that we go in and try not to concede a goal. So I don't think the comparisons with Jose are fair. I think that the comparisons with Van Gaal are probably closer, because Van Gaal played quite containing football, but also developed youth and tried to, focus on individualism. I mean, remember Martial's goal on his debut. But also, I think there's a very telling similarity to Van Gaal that some of you might remember. And I do wonder how much this is impacting on Ollie against the top six. Remember when Van Gaal first came to the club and Di Maria was there and we were playing quite well? And then we went to Leicester in a weird game and some dodgy refereeing decisions, and we got panned. And from then, Van Gaal never really went for it again. And I'm just wondering this season with Solskjaer, has that Spurs game left him sore? Has that Spurs game left him like, I'm not going to go for it in any game against the traditional top six anymore? And has Solskjaer become very focused on short-term goals because he's an interim manager who then gets the job? And almost, I think Solskjaer unfairly is a coach that is always perceived as being a pretender, and not actually, he's not seen as the king. He's seen as a pretender in the throne by some of our fans, certainly by the media. If you look at the way the media went after Ollie in October, comparable to how Lampard was treated, the media never went after Lampard, even though he had much worse results. But in the autumn, the media really went for Ollie. And he does have this perception of being a bit of a pretender in the role, like he's not good enough. Even when he does well, he doesn't really get the praise that much. And I just wonder for Solskjaer, if his time in charge is dictated to by this forever having to prove something, and to prove something he's always looking at short-term goals. Like when he first came into the job, that 3 months thing got him the job, and then it was like the next season it was about getting third place, and he ran his team into the ground at the expense of the Europa League semi-final. We were knackered. And this season, he's not making many changes, is he? He's sticking with the same players. He's not really changing the way we play. In the big games, he's keeping it tight. And is that not just because he's trying to get to the end of the season in top four to keep his job? Everything with Solskjaer always seems to be very short term, and maybe a bit of a long-term commitment would help. But how do you give somebody a long-term commitment when every couple of bad results he has, there's this Ollie out movement that comes upon him? I just feel, and look, I don't have the answer, but what I'm trying to say is I feel as if Solskjaer's management of Manchester United is never truly free. He never takes his foot off the pedal and just lets us play freely. It's always about the result. Now, well, that is similar to Jose. Jose was a percentage manager, and I think Solskjaer at the moment is looking at the summer and he's just trying to get enough points to get top four so that, he can get a new contract, regardless of how we do it. And I think too many times under Solskjaer's 2.5 years, it's been about just getting the points. We hear him talk about playing the United way, but we don't do it enough. We don't. We don't. We're always halfway house. And I think this is where the likes of Maguire and Lindelof and McTominay and Fred, the reason I think he picks those four players, and I've spent months trying to figure it out. The reason I think he picks those players is because he trusts those players. He trusts those players to do a job that he knows they will do. Yeah, it will probably be 0-0. yeah, we won't score many goals, and yeah, he'll have to rely on some individualism from Bruno or Rashford. But he knows that those jobs, as those players, as limited as they are, he trusts those players. Even though an Eric Bailly in there would make us play better and it would free up McTominay to play better, he sticks with those players. Everybody knows that Lindelof and Maguire are not the best centre-back pairing at Manchester United, apart from the manager. But he does it because he trusts them to do a limited job. Because at the end of the day, he's all for a clean sheet and nicking a result. Was that not what Mourinho was like? So how on earth have Chelsea got away scot-free with what they wrote on their official sites about Harry Maguire in their match preview, says Neil Crode. Well, we're talking about penalties again, aren't we? And Gary Dunscombe, thanks for the super chat. Just on the penalties, by the way, I will bring this in. This is very interesting. In the 25 games before Jurgen Klopp made his comments about Manchester United getting penalties, we got 11 penalties in 25 games. Since Jurgen Klopp's comments about Manchester United getting penalties, we've had 2 in 16. So we had 11 in 25, and now we've had 2 in 16. That's a very coincidental big shift, isn't it? And what I would say is, out of those 16 games, I can think of 2 nailed on penalties that we didn't get. The one yesterday, the handball, and the one against Fred against Fulham. That was a nailed on. And you can probably tell me more. But you're telling me the media doesn't influence referees. Bullshit. 11 penalties in 25 before Klopp's comments, and Lampard and Chelsea, and then 2 in 16. This is how manipulated our referees are, because that is a big change. You can't lie about that. Mark, I was considering this. If Arsenal had the same squad as us and were second, I would have been super impressed. Yes, we need to ask more from Ollie and the players, but every game we need to put pressure on the board, says Angie S. Look, there's no doubt that, this time after 26 games 3 years ago, Jose Mourinho had 6 points than Ollie's got now. 6 more points than Ollie's got now. I think this season's shit. I do. I think the quality of the Premier League is shit. I think Manchester City had a bad start to the season, and yet they've still been able to blitz through the pack to go top of the league and run away with it. So we talk about this league being the best one ever. It was only the best one ever because it was so open. And I think what we've realised is it was so open because everyone's been so shit. So I don't think that this is a great season by any means. And I think we need to take advantage of it and make sure we get top 4 and hopefully finish second. But look, Angie's right. The board didn't deliver for Mourinho when he finished second, and they didn't deliver for Ollie last summer when he finished third. We know the problem with the board. We accept the problem with the board, and for some unbeknown reason, we have to swallow what the board do at this football club. But I do also have to say that I am very, very, very open-minded to the fact that the way the football we've played under Ollie this season has not been good enough. I thought the first hour against Newcastle last week was shocking. I think for Steve Bruce's Newcastle to come to Old Trafford and press the life out of us wasn't good enough. And I thought yesterday we were very very defensive in our attitude, even though in the first half we were high up the pitch. There wasn't really a lot of commitment. There wasn't a commitment to push players forward and really do things in and around Chelsea's box. We were happy to just mess around with it around the edge of their box. So look, I think you've got to say that the standard of football under Ollie is questionable at the moment. But to say that I think there are big similarities between where we were 3 years ago with Mourinho, and I think Angie's spot on here. We are very, very similar to where we were 3 years ago. But I don't think the style of football is that similar. I think it is against the top 6. I'll put my hands up. What is it? 2 0-0s with Chelsea. 2 times we haven't scored against Arsenal. 2 0-0s Man City and Liverpool. And obviously the 6-1 with Spurs. They bear the hallmarks of a Jose Mourinho performance. They really do. But that's 7 games out of 26. There's another 19 games where I don't think we've played like Mourinho would ever play. I don't think Mourinho would have played like we did against Southampton, or numerous other games. Southampton away I'm talking about, where it was 3-2, where we were 2-0 down at half time. We went for it. So I don't think the similarities are there. I think the similarities are frustratingly there with the top 6. But I think one of the glaring things is that 3 years ago we were second in the league but miles behind Manchester City, and 3 years later we're second in the league but we're miles behind Man City. That similarity is something that I would take to the bank and say, this is not acceptable. But I wouldn't be looking at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I would be looking above, and I would say, we had a different manager 3 years ago. We had different players 3 years ago. But 3 years later, we're doing the same thing again. You talk to us about progress. You talk to your shareholders about progress. You talk about ambition to win titles. You talk about ambitions to be the best club in the world. 3 years ago is where we are now. The manager can't take us any better than where we are now. You can. And 3 years ago, Jose Mourinho finished second to Manchester City. Within 6 months, he'd been sacked. Now, yeah, the fans were starting to turn on him even when we finished second, but you didn't deliver any players, and in 6 months later, he was sacked. And now we've had another manager in who 2.5 years later than that is sat in the same position, second in the league, behind Manchester City, and everybody knows we're miles off Man City. 3 years later, we're in exactly the same position where you let a manager down and he was sacked and we had to start again. What's going to happen with this manager then? What's the betting that by Christmas Ollie's gone and we're going to have to go through the cycle again? I think this is such a big... I agree with Angie. This is such a massive summer for Manchester United because we are in the same position where we were 3 years ago. And are we going to allow this cycle to just continue? Are we going to allow the bullshit to keep coming down from above, showering us with stench and nonsense? Because we are in the same position. And I think the most important thing is to not focus on the similarities between what Mourinho was doing 3 years ago and what Ollie's doing now, but look at why we've got these two parallels 3 years apart. And actually, the parallels go to a pyramid, and it's the same people in charge who are causing that. It is the owners, it is the board, because football style wasn't why Mourinho finished second, and football style is not why Ollie's finishing second. Neither Mourinho or Ollie could have took that first place that year or this year. We couldn't do it. We're not on the level of Manchester City. We're the best of the rest, but we're a long way behind. And second best is not Manchester United. So I think when people start talking about Ollie out or similar football to Mourinho, which there is against the top six, I agree. We do play very defensive. But the similarity that really should resonate is the fact that 3 years ago we were here and that manager was sacked within 6 months. And 3 years now, here we are. And what's going to happen to that manager this summer? Because the next step from second is first. But if the club, like with Mourinho, don't back him and they don't back Ollie, there is only down and there is only a P45. So I think it's a massive, massive, massive summer for Manchester United to truly back a manager, because there is only one way to go. There's two options. You're either going to sack him or you're going to back him, because second becomes first or it becomes the sack, and we all know that. So it's that similarity I'm interested in. What managers does look at the other team's websites, says Tabras? I don't know. To be fair on Ollie, many people didn't see him here this long, so Ollie with no history of big manager is doing good at the minute, says Ray Carl Baron-Amore. But Mark, you say 3 years later in the same situation, Man City didn't stagnate for the last 3 years. Every season they get better and better, thought, says Yazid. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But they have the same manager from 3 years ago, and they have a board that backs that manager for the last 3 years, so they're going to get better, aren't they? I mean, to be fair, they didn't win the league every year because Liverpool became good, didn't they? That summer... The interesting thing is, that summer we finished second under Mourinho. That was the summer Liverpool bought Alisson. I can't remember who else they got. I think they got Fabinho that summer as well. That was the summer Liverpool went right, bang. They weren't even second, and we did nil. We didn't do anything really. The sorry thing is, we have been saying this is a big summer for United ever since Fergie left. Ed and the board continue to let everyone down, says Sanjit. Well, I'll tell you this for free. If Manchester United do not do what needs to be done in this transfer window, which I don't think they will, Solskjaer will be sacked anyway. Whether you're Ollie in or you're Ollie out, he's gone. He will be gone within 18 months, maybe 6 months. If they don't do what they should have done for Mourinho 3 years ago, he's gone. Gone. So it doesn't matter whether you're Ollie in or you're Ollie out, he's gone. Not because of me, not because of you, because of the board. And that's the same way it's always been. Mourinho parked the bus against everyone. Ollie does it a lot, but not every single time. I agree with you, Davaren. Glazer's out, says Ethan. And Mourinho got us second in 2018. He wasn't backed. Ollie got us third and he wasn't backed. How can we progress with no backing and third choice players, says Fergus. Yes. And I don't think we are best of the rest. Other teams win games and boss it start to finish. We haven't done that this season. He has players to do better, says Mark Dobby. Well, Mark, I'm not going to ignore that. I mean, I woke up this morning and I looked on Twitter and there was an account showing the Scott McTominay as he ran through on the right-hand side. And I heard people saying, oh, the Chelsea goalkeeper's positioned well and the defender's positioned well. It's a very hard cross. Yeah, it's a very hard cross once he's taken a touch. He should have crossed it first time. It's such an easy cross first time. James and Rashford are running onto it and you're not as close to the goal as you are when you take the touch. I still think it's a fairly straightforward cross when he's taken the touch, but what he should do is play it first time into the path of James or Rashford. And if they mess it up, they get the blame. But can I just say this? For those people who are blaming McTominay, can I just say, hasn't played all week, only trained on Saturday, that's happening in the last few minutes of the game. Donny van de Beek is sat on the bench. Should McTominay not have been coming off around 75 minutes, considering he'd only trained once? Imagine if that's Donny van de Beek running down the right-hand side. Because I tell you what, Donny Osmond would make that cross, let alone Donny van de Beek. So I don't know, you can blame McTominay, but I mean, he wasn't even meant to play in that game. And he's playing 90 minutes. So, I've got to throw that onto Solskjaer a little bit. And people go, oh, he's going Ollie out again. I'm not Ollie out. As I've said this morning, I am... I'm going to be critical. I'm going to be critical no matter who the manager is. I think, even when Sir Alex Ferguson was manager, I didn't agree with some things he did. It didn't make me right, but I didn't agree with some of the things he did. But I think Solskjaer, look, I said at the start of the show, one of my favourite performances from Solskjaer in his career. The Paris one where we won it with Rashford's penalty, let's be honest, that was a bit like Chelsea. I mean, it really was. We celebrate that performance like it was amazing. And it was an amazing night in Paris, that was. But the way we played that game was like we played against Chelsea yesterday. To celebrate the way we played would be wrong. To celebrate the result was good. But the result against Paris was brilliant. Against PSG in autumn this season was brilliant. As I said, it was a proper 11 against 11. It wasn't a knockout game. It was a group game. Both teams went for it and we were the better team and we deserved to win that game. But there was in-game management. As I said, with half an hour to go, I think he brought Pogba on and we changed the formation. He doesn't do that anymore. He's not been doing that for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. He's gone back to what he did after lockdown last year, where he sticks with the same players for as long as possible, hoping for a moment, rather than trusting in his bench. The ironic thing is, Dan James has now become a first-team player. But Dan James has been sat on that bench for 2 months. And Ollie would look around and go, can't see you. And now he's had to use him and seen he's a good player. And so I think that there is an issue with Solskjaer in relation to trust. He doesn't trust these players, but when he has to use them, he finds that they're good enough anyway. Now Dan James is a first teamer, but he never used to bring him off the bench. So I know that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer can do better. I know he can use his bench and I know he can use his tactics, but very, very rarely over the last couple of months have we seen him change formation in game, change tactics in game, or use his substitutes in game. He doesn't use them very often. Yet, we have seen him do that before Christmas quite regularly. And I think it goes back to what I was saying. I think he's running scared a little bit. I think he's now about, I'm going to stick with the 11 that I started with because that's my best 11. I'm trying to get points to get top 4. We were in a title race yesterday, technically. We never even tried to win that game because he's running scared. It wasn't about trying to have a go to see if we could win, to stay a little bit closer to City, to beat Palace and then try and beat City next week. It was about, I'm not looking up, I'm looking down. And I think that, in a sentence, is what the problem is with United at the moment. We're looking down, we're not looking up. We've given up on looking up. We're now looking down at the teams behind us and going, I'll take a draw instead of trying to win or trusting these players to win. Look at Ollie's signings. Why would you back him, says Lewis Barnes. Mark, City are run by and one of the most efficient on-the-pitch results-based businessman as they get a proper business, says Monzor. Mr. Concerned about getting tactically outclassed by Leipzig, Newcastle, West Brom, Sheffield, no subs, fast centre-back and Donny always on the bench, thought, says Karen. And finally, Van der Beek needs to play the next 2 games. They are games where you put a player in and see how he performs. If he does well, he forces into the team. That's on Ollie. Here's how Ollie progresses, says Angie S. And Mark, at the rate of cycle under the board continuing, if City maintains for a decade, how long until we're the noisy neighbours we need backing, says Gabrielle Noel. And how do we persuade the board to sell up? I don't think we do. I don't think we do, to be honest with you. Woodward likes Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in top 4. He won't get the sack, says Tabres. And Mark, does the squad lack quality or mentality, says Christian Smith. we lack identity, I think, Christian. I think yesterday you saw the frustration when Bruno was walking off the pitch. You do see that. Ollie's a flighter, not a fighter. If you know, you know, says Rudolph the Red. I just think that, you know, there was quite a controversial thing yesterday, and I'll bring it up. I don't care. I'll bring it up. Please smash a like on the video, by the way. We're close to 1,000 likes. There was a tweet from Ricky today about the shot from Fred that Ollie applauded and went. And I replied to it because I didn't like it. And I said, I didn't like it. I mean, are we just having a laugh? And I got a lot of stick for it. But I knew I would. And I don't care, really. I'm not bothered because it's what I genuinely believe. It's unpopular opinion time, I suppose. I don't think you should not, especially when we do what we do, we shouldn't be scared to say what we think, even if we know it's going to get a lot of stick, because it was, honestly, when I saw Ollie go and Fred smile, I didn't like it. Now, a lot of people said, well, he's just backing a player who's low on confidence, and there endeth the lesson. He shouldn't be shooting. He's shit. This is Manchester United against Chelsea, second against fifth. It's not shooting practice at Carrington. It's not a Carabao Cup game against Rochdale. It's Stamford Bridge. And encouraging a player who I do not even think has a Brazilian passport at times. I mean, I'm joking, but like, he's got zero creativity and his shooting is terrible. All I think about when I see that is like, well, I'll explain this. The reason I don't like it, and you can like it, I'm not getting into an abusive, Goldbridge, you're a twat, not backing your man. That's not what it's about for me. What went through my head that I didn't like was, this is where we are. That's the sort of thing. I don't know what, I don't want to disrespect a club and say that's the sort of thing a certain club does, but what went through my head when Fred had that shot and Ollie was like, and they had a little laugh together, I was like, we've hardly done anything in this game and we're celebrating a shot because it was relatively close to the goal for once. And I thought, this terrifies me, because that's Ollie basically encouraging, which is good. He is encouraging him, but it's also an acceptance that try again. And if at first you don't succeed, try again. And I'm like, that's not an elite mentality. That is not an elite mentality. Basically, that's a shit player having a shot and his manager going, don't worry, try again. That's the sort of thing that you do when you've got somebody who is, it's basically what a fitness instructor does to somebody who's crap when they first go for their first few lessons and they're trying to lift weights or they're trying to run a certain speed. Keep trying. What it basically is in that moment that I didn't like, it was just an example of, we're not good enough, but keep trying. And I'm like, this is the problem. We're Manchester United. Keep trying until you do it. What if he's never going to do it, is he? What's he, 27? He's not going to suddenly find the ability to curl one in from the edge of the box off his weak foot. He's not going to. But so I do understand why Solskjaer did it. It's not a criticism of Ollie. If anything, it's a criticism of the board. I understand why Solskjaer's doing it, because he's got to encourage what he's got. But to me, it just emphasises that what we've got's not good enough. And that epitomised the whole game yesterday. The fact that Chelsea, on numerous occasions, were very happy to let Fred make his way to the edge of the box with the ball. They weren't bothered about Fred. And they were right not to be bothered about Fred, because he has got nothing that's going to hurt Chelsea from the edge of the box. Let him have it. Let him have a shot. And that Ollie going, like, and they smile at each other, try again. Ultimately, that's not what Liverpool are doing. That's not what Man City are doing. It's not what Bayern Munich are doing. A player like that wouldn't even be in the starting lineup, because it's like, yeah, try again. Go and try on the training ground, and also go and try in the under-23s, because you're not playing from the first team because you're not good enough. But this is the issue at Manchester United. We've got too many players who are limited players, but because they run around a lot and they try hard, they suddenly become fan favourites. And the level of our quality has dropped massively. I'm not being critical of those players. I'm not even going to name them. And I'm not being critical of Solskjaer, because this is what happens when you don't get backed. You have to use what you've got, and we champion what we've got. But in that moment, I was like, oh my God, that made me cringe. Not because Ollie's giving him encouragement, but because it's a laugh that's what we've got. It was a laugh. They were laughing. He was laughing at him, basically. He was like, oh, try again next time. Because he's not good enough. And we're Manchester United, and we've got players taking shots like that, or clueless most of the time in the final third. But he is one of our underrated players. He's one of our best players, and he's not good enough. And that's the issue. That's what bothers me. And that's why my frustration goes beyond Ollie or Fred or any other player like that that's limited, that runs around a lot. I look upstairs and I go, why am I getting pissed off about this? Why are you getting pissed off about this? Why are they not pissed off about it? Because all they want is top 4 in the money. So that, I've probably elongated the conversation on that. But what I really want to say is that I wasn't angry because Ollie went, go on, try again, or Fred had a little smile. I was angry because I was like, we're Manchester United, and that's the level we're at. Not good enough, basically, but let's try again, because it's all we've bloody got, and now run around a bit more. I believe in Ollie, and I think we set up conservatively because we do not have good enough players to dominate games. Not enough Bruno, Pogba, Shaw level, says Greg Basham. And I think that's what I've just basically said there. And God, yeah, you know what? If anybody ever wants to be critical of Paul Pogba, bloody hell, how have we missed him over the last while? We do. We miss Pogba. We really do miss Pogba. And we might miss him even longer in the summer. Which manager succeeds under the board, says NG Music. I think that's a good... I mean, I've got loads to get through, actually, topical stuff, but we've sort of dwelled on this. So the FA are going to let Shaw off with it. Smells funny to me. Someone at the FA doesn't want an investigation going into what the ref says Joshua Bowles. I want to talk about that. Why not blame Ollie? He has a player like Van der Beek. Why not put him on in the position that Fred was? Well, look, Bogdan... We've spoken about that before, and I do agree with you on that one. But we've already spoken about that. His underuse of substitutions is poor, and I think it's because he's scared, and I don't think he's brave enough. I think he's playing conservative, and he's managing percentage wise. And I've already said that earlier in the show. I think Solskjaer knows that top 4 will keep him in a job, and at the moment he's looking at that. But the thing is, the scary thing is, and look, Solskjaer ain't going to listen to me, he's not going to listen to you. But if I could speak to him, I would say the problem you've got, Ollie, is that I understand what you're doing. You're sticking with the players you trust. You don't want to try anything new. You don't want to change the tactics. You don't want to make substitutes. You're sticking with the same players and the same formation because you think that that's the percentage way to go. You will get enough points to finish top 4. And I think you're right, you will do. But at the start of next season, people will expect better football. And if you don't do it, what are you going to do again? Play percentage football to keep yourself in a job. You're just delaying the inevitable. You either start playing a certain way at some point, or you're gonna die in the Man United role, because you won't get away with this. Like Mourinho didn't get away with it, and the only reason you'll get away with it a little bit longer is because of who you are, quite rightly. But you can't just keep thinking, I've got to get to the end of the season, so I'm going to play percentage football and stick with the same players. But then next season, I'm going to try and play. And then you have a bad result and you think, oh, I'm going back into my shell again. I'm just going to play percentage football. And I think we've seen that, haven't we? So that becomes an issue. Somebody did ask, could any manager do better than what he's done? Honestly, in my opinion, no. Which is why I've always said you've got to give him till May and see what happens with the summer and the board, and hopefully the board will do something. But I wouldn't hold my breath on that. What I would say is that there's no manager that could take us to first place. No. Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, Zidane, any good manager you want, they won't take that team to first place. Man City are winning the league no matter who's in charge of Man United at the moment. But what you could see is maybe a few more points and certainly a more expansive brand of football. You would see that. I think if Pochettino was in this role, I don't think he'd be playing McFred. I think he'd find a place for Van der Beek. I think Pep Guardiola would find a place for Van der Beek, and he wouldn't play McFred as well. And he wouldn't play Maguire and Lindelof. He'd play one of them with a quicker player. Klopp definitely would play Bailly because he wants to play higher up the pitch. He'd push Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw higher up the pitch. He would not play McTominay and Fred in the way that we play them. He might play them with McTominay having more license to get forward. So you know, it's not hard to look at the way a manager manages and drop them into Manchester United, and you know straight away what different players they would use and what different system they would use. But none of those managers are attainable. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is our manager. We wouldn't be first place though. We would be slightly better off, or maybe the same points, but better brand of football on the eye, definitely. But we wouldn't be first place. That's not fair on Ollie. No way. Ollie manages United like we're Cardiff, not good enough, says Don Quite. And if someone told me we're going to get rid of everyone from our owners to players, borrowing 4 or 5 players and start again, I'd happily take it, says Mark Dobby. Well, look, I think we've said everything we need to say about that, and I'm sure it's going to rumble on for a while. But we have got Crystal Palace on Wednesday, which is a must-win game. And I just think, for me, to summarise where I am, I've always been very consistent that I'm with Ollie until May, and let's see where we are. And I think I'll be with Ollie next season because I think he will get a new contract. But I'm not happy with the way we're playing at the moment. I think we are not using enough of our squad. We are not making enough changes within game. And I think that the brand of football that we're putting out with McFred and Magaluf against the top 6 is really disappointing. And hopefully it will stop. But I think he's doing it to get to the summer to get a job. And I think next season, when the bad results come in again, he'll do this again. Because I think he knows it works. The sad thing is he knows this works. He knows that this counter-attacking defensive football works and it gets him results and he doesn't concede. So it will get him the results he needs to stay. So until he moves away from that, I think he's always going to be criticised. Mark, we can't just say Ollie can only be good manager once he gets 50 million plus players in every position. Also, his progress being 6 points above West Ham, says Joshua Harper. A style of play is like a coach's signature. If he was going to play expansive against the top 6, he would have done it already. Transfers won't change that, says Marky. And I think that there is probably the most relevant point of this show. How much money he gets, will he make any changes? Donny van der Beek's already at this club. Eric Bay's already at this club. That's 2 changes you could make straight away to the way we played yesterday. He refuses to do it. So that is the question mark, I suppose. But I guess time will tell. But I'll repeat what I said this morning if you didn't watch the morning show. At the moment, there's a certain percentage of the round pie that doesn't want the manager here. The more he keeps doing things like yesterday against the top 6, the bigger that pie will come. And it might take a long, long time, but that pie will get bigger and bigger, and eventually people won't want him to be the manager anymore. I know people who message me. I'm not going to say who they are, but they message me quite regularly. Itchy finger. United fans for over like 30 years. They message me quite regularly, and they say I can't stand him. I know he's a great player for the club, but I can't stand him as a manager of our club. And it surprises me. It does surprise me because they're hard. Well, I don't like the word hardcore, but they're United through and through. And they've seen the good times, and they've seen Solskjaer score the goals that he scored. And they don't like Solskjaer as manager of Manchester United. Which is sad, because to me, I'm not in that boat. If I was, I'd just say it. But that's the danger. People will turn, and some people have turned that you wouldn't have thought would have turned. I'm not talking about, I'm talking about fans that you might know who are United through and through, and they love Solskjaer as a player, but they're not into him as a manager. And that's dangerous for Ollie. He's got to be aware of that. When you stood outside Old Trafford and the fans are there at a match day, they're queuing up. They want anyone's signature. Of course they're going to shout and love you. But it doesn't represent how everybody necessarily feels. And he does need to be careful of that because, as I said, this happened to Mourinho. He finished second and people turned on him very, very quickly. They were already turning on him. Let's talk about some topical stuff. So, yeah, there was this talk of Luke Shaw getting a ban because of what he'd said after the game yesterday, that Harry Maguire had told him that the referee had said that he didn't give the penalty because it would be too controversial. The FA were looking into banning him, and now they've decided they're not going to. Well, I said this morning I smell bullshit. I don't know. Why would Luke Shaw say that? Why would Harry Maguire tell Luke Shaw that if it hadn't happened? You know you're going to get a ban for saying it. So I think quite rightly what somebody said there, something just doesn't stack up. Something has been said, otherwise the FA would ban him. So it's all being swept under the carpet. I expect Stuart Atwell will be out of the Premier League again very, very soon because it was a shocking decision. But ultimately, I just want to move on for him. We didn't get the bloody penalty, did we? So, end of the story, I suppose. Quick one. Contenders for Player of the Month for February. You can vote for it through the United website. McTominay, James, Bruno and Shaw. To me, that's slim pickings. I mean, Dan James has only been playing for a couple of weeks, hasn't he? McTominay, I don't really remember. I know he scored a couple of goals, but I don't really remember him doing that much. And I don't think Bruno had a great February. So for me, it's Luke Shaw by a long way. Luke Shaw was Luke Shaw's been Mr. Consistent for a couple of months, so it's Luke Shaw for me. I think we're scraping the barrel with some of those. Even Bruno, I don't think, had a great February. So Luke Shaw for me on that one. Sad news about Timothy Fosu-Mensah. Obviously, he's left Manchester United. He's only gone and done his cruciate ligament in his knee again. Really sad. Really sad. I mean, I was conflicted about whether we should have let him go. I think in January I was happy for him to go because he obviously wasn't going to get any first team football. But I mean, in a way, when I heard it, I was like, God, it's fortunate for Manchester United that they didn't give him a new long-term contract. But in a way, I wish we had done for him personally, because it's that security, isn't it? I feel for Fosu-Mensah. That's his second one in. You worry when somebody does that twice in close succession. You start to wonder about the future of their career. I'm in that camp you spoke about. I love him as a player, but not as a manager, says Southpaw Love Sports. To me, they are two different things. Miss when he was just a great player, says Southpaw Love Sports. Well, yeah, I think just going back to that very quickly, you have got to look at it like that. You can't just have a manager. You can't. I think some of our fans see Ollie as the legend player he was. And that's up to them. But that's a little bit like me sit here listening to Roy Keane and treating everything he says as a pundit like I did as a player. I worshipped Roy Keane as a player. He's the best, my favourite player. In my lifetime, he's my favourite player. What a player. But, he thought it was a good tackle on Luke Shaw when Luke Shaw's leg got snapped. And I thought, I didn't agree with Roy on that. I really didn't agree with him on that. And I've disagreed with him on quite a few things. And I suppose that's the same as Ollie as a manager. As a player, oh my God, legend. As a manager, I don't need to treat him as the player. And it's the same with these legend footballers. I don't treat them, their punditry, like I did them as a player. Paul Scholes, to me, could do no wrong on the pitch. I think he sometimes doesn't get it right off the pitch with his punditry. So I think you do have to differentiate the two. Otherwise, you're hanging off every word they've got, and it might not be something you agree with. And it's the same with the management style, isn't it? Funnily enough, I saw a quote from Scholes, which I tweeted about 2 weeks ago. I said that Thiago would suit Manchester United better. And Scholes has said it as well. He must watch the United stand. He doesn't. But yeah, he's right. I think Thiago does not suit Liverpool. He slows them down. At United, he'd be bloody perfect because we're so slow anyway. He'd make us look fast. But Thiago, where Fred is, would be brilliant because Thiago is quite mobile. He does put his foot in, but he can also play a bloody pass. I think Scholes is right about that, and I'd said it a few. I think we spoke about it a few weeks ago as well. I remember when Ollie took over, he was critical of Jose's defensive and backward tactics, and now he's doing it hypocritically. I'm not Ollie out, but when fans come back, there will be nowhere to hide, says Mike Carolan. If nothing has been said by the ref, like the FA told us, why don't they release the audio tape? Says Colin Sexton. And welcome to the members club, Sean Brennan. Thank you for joining. You can do that by clicking the join button. You get your badge next to your name. What else was I going to talk to you about? Fosu, Thiago, too many short teams, squared by this, NFA, Griezmann, I haven't spoke about that. Griezmann, I mean, take this with a pinch of salt, but apparently Griezmann might be an option for Manchester United this summer. As a Sancho alternative. I'd rather have a sandwich than Griezmann, to be honest. No, I don't want Griezmann anywhere near our bloody club. He would be absolutely no. No. And everyone in the live comments is saying no. Griezmann had his chance at United 4 years ago, was it? 4 or 5 years ago? That was the chance. Passed it. Don't go near him. No way. Wouldn't want him anywhere near Manchester United. No way. Griezmann for the right wing, yeah. I mean, people still do like Griezmann, but I wouldn't want him. And they'd want really, they'd want a lot of money. This ain't 2016, bro. I don't want him, says Sam Champion. But if we play against the top six so passively in the league, why do we play with such an attacking intent in cup games? I can't get my head around it, says Alistair Minju. And, well, you're not getting our Dembele. I don't want Dembele either. Injury prone. Do not want him. I'm surprised Ollie didn't play Bruno yesterday in such a big game too, says Blue Moon. Actually, I'm very glad that you mentioned that. Bruno goes missing in the big games, apparently. Scholesy said this. I think Roy Keane said it. And it's been said by quite a lot of people, a lot of fans as well. So, and you know me, I don't value an ex-player's opinion over yours anyway. But so to be fair, this has been said a lot about Bruno Fernandes, that he goes missing in games. I've got to say, it's always going to be about opinion. But I just feel that with Bruno Fernandes, it's the Pogba, Martial, De Gea factor. It's because he's a foreign player at this football club, and he has been really good. And for some reason, people seem to have a bit of a chip on their shoulder about foreign players doing well at our club. Within our fan base, I don't get it. It's always the foreign players that seem to get targeted, even though they're quite clearly some of our better players. They just seem to always be the ones that are scrutinised. Bruno Fernandes this season has broken records for an attacking midfielder. He's going to win Player of the Year. Not for Manchester United, for the Premier League. Unless there's a real shock, he will win Player of the Year. And yet, some of our fans and ex-players still don't want to accept how good a player he is. He knows he played badly yesterday. I know he played badly yesterday. You know he played badly yesterday. He walked off that pitch furious yesterday. Do you think he was furious because of himself? Do you think he looked in the mirror after the game furious and went, "Bruno, you've had a shit game. It's all on you"? I don't think he did, and I don't think he should have done. I think he was furious yesterday because he ran his arse off. Now, putting a shift in FC, sorry, Bruno, that's not going to get you a 7 out of 10 with me. I think I gave him a 5. Putting a shift in is not a ticket to a good performance, and we need to understand this. Too many players, not Bruno, too many players in a Manchester United shirt get championed by people because they run around. They're limited. They're limited players. You know who I'm talking about. We've got limited players in our first team, but they run around a lot. They put a shift in and everyone thinks, look at him. He's running around. He's trying to tackle people. And it's like, fuck off. Seriously. I've seen Roy Keane and Eric Cantona run around and they can actually play football. Oh my God. We're now championing people who run around a bit. But Bruno ran about a bit yesterday. I gave him 5 out of 10, below average. But you know why he was frustrated when he walked off the pitch yesterday? He was frustrated because he had nothing going on around him. Nothing. No good ball, no quick ball, no space, no chance to get a shot off. Nothing. That's why he was frustrated. The same thing happened to him at against Chelsea at Old Trafford in October. The same thing happened to him at the Emirates a few weeks ago. The same thing happened to him at Anfield a few weeks ago. And the same thing happened to him in December against Manchester City. And the same thing happened to him in the Carabao Cup against Manchester City in January. Because people are forgetting that. They're all going on about the 0-0s in the league. We played Man City in the Carabao Cup semi-final at the start of January. Did we score in that game? No. Did we play the same way that we did yesterday? Yes. Bruno Fernandes will not have a good game against Manchester City next week. So all these people who don't rate him or want to go in on him, you can write your article now. He won't have a good game next week if Ollie plays the way he did yesterday. It won't work. Kevin De Bruyne wouldn't have a good game yesterday. Zinedine Zidane in his prime wouldn't have had a good game yesterday. Messi wouldn't have had a good game yesterday. Because to play well as an attacking player, you need to get the ball. And you need to get the ball quickly. Because against the top sides, if they're well organised when you get the ball, there ain't nothing you're going to do. You're not going to, and also, when he does get the ball, he's basically got 3 options. Because the fullbacks aren't overlapping, and neither are Fred or McTominay. So he looks up, he's got to find Greenwood, James or Rashford with everyone in the Chelsea team back in position. It's not the... I'll tell you what, I'd love to see Prime Paul Scholes play that game yesterday and see what he could do in that situation. Because he knows full well, if you are an attacking midfielder, you need to get the ball quickly. That's the whole point. And if you don't get it, you're not creating anything and you're not getting shots on goal. So, yeah, Bruno didn't play well yesterday. But it does make me laugh how people say he doesn't turn up in big games. As if he's going to turn up, skip past 3 players and score it in the top corner. That's not his game. He doesn't run past people like that. He's a creator and he's a finisher and he's an inspiration. But you can't do that if you don't get the ball quick enough. So he doesn't go missing in big games. Our creativity goes missing in big games because we play around for a clean sheet. Bruno don't need to improve even when not best game. He always gives everything, and you all know that. So stop Bruno hates us poorly. I don't really care if people hate Bruno Fernandes or dislike Bruno Fernandes. All I think it does is it just shows their total lack of understanding about you can't on one hand say that we're protecting our centre backs and then on the other hand say that Bruno doesn't turn up. It's a contradiction. If you're protecting your centre backs, you're playing deep. How can Bruno play well in a game where 6 of our players are playing deep and they're not getting the ball to him quick enough because the gap's too big? One feeds the other. And the reason Bruno has not played well in all those games, those 6 or 7 games we've played against the traditional top 6, is because in those 6 or 7 games we've played deep and we've isolated our attack. And it's not just Bruno who played bad. Why is people not talking about Rashford as well? Always a good point. Why is no one talking about Rashford? Rashford was worse than Bruno yesterday. Rashford was crap against Arsenal as well and Liverpool. Why is Rashford not being mentioned? He's one of our best players. He's one of England's best players. No, it's got to be Bruno. It's got to be on Bruno. Bruno didn't turn up. Don't talk about Marcus because he's from the youth setup and he's English. Put it all on Bruno. But the reality is, Greenwood, Rashford, James, Bruno all played badly yesterday because they're isolated. It's a system thing. Rashford is always... Yeah, Delaney, you're right. But it's not... I don't blame them. And as Frank Carville says, what about everyone else? And that's the thing. It's not... I don't blame them. I blame that setup. But let's be honest. Bruno's been brilliant this year. Rashford's been brilliant this year. And United have been good this year. It's those games against the top 6 that are holding Ollie back, are holding Bruno back, are holding Rashford back. We're not... Everybody watches the big games. That's the problem. There's not many non-United fans who are going to watch us play against Palace on Wednesday night. But they'll watch us play Man City on Sunday, and they'll watch us play Chelsea yesterday, and they'll walk away, these media, ex-players, fans that don't support United, they'll go, how are United second? They're shit. That Bruno's overhyped. They're rubbish. But they won't watch us against Palace where we play in a totally different way. And obviously that's 75% of our games are not those top 6 games. But they get scrutinised in those games and they don't see what we're really all about because Ollie won't let us be that. Ollie as manager is like the crap player on the ball who dribbles past a few players, fun while it lasts, but you know it will come to an end, says Fred Raymond. Mark, Luke Shaw had an average game yesterday, but no one will talk about it. Yeah, I said Luke Shaw was average yesterday. You know why Luke Shaw was average yesterday? Because half of his game disappeared. Luke Shaw is probably a very big example of the problem that we have when we play the traditional top 6. You watch Luke Shaw against Palace on Wednesday night, if he plays, he will probably put a 7 or 8 out of 10 in. Because as good as Luke Shaw is defensively, he's bloody brilliant going backwards and forwards. He's like a yo-yo. Against Chelsea, he didn't really go forwards. So his game was very average. And the same thing will happen on Sunday. You can actually move it beyond Bruno now. You're right. I knew Bruno would have a bad game. Rashford would have a bad game. Green would have a bad game. James would have a bad game. You can now start saying Luke Shaw's going to have a bad game because half of his game disappears. He's not allowed to go forward, so he doesn't have a good game. It's all very good. I can't believe Mark really read my comment. You made my day, says Javon. No worries, pal. No worries. Thanks for all the comments as ever. I've enjoyed the chat. I always know it's a good show when it flies by. I always know it's a good show when it's not easy. Nazir says he's still ranting. I don't think I've ranted in a very long time, Nazir. I certainly haven't ranted today. It's called having a conversation. I don't need to rant. I actually don't think ranting does any good for fans anymore. I think it's had its day. I think ranting about things just makes you look a prat. I think well-constructed, passionate argument is the way to go. Mark, think Mason played well yesterday considering how little he got fed the ball. He was having to come into midfield to get the ball back though, says Thomas. But Mason played exactly the same as Cavani and exactly the same as Martial, but you've got to give him a 5 out of 10 because he got no service, he hardly got anything of the ball. He put a shift in. We can't give people a good score because they put a shift in. But it's not their fault they had a bad game. Shout out to the Shanghai Lads on tour and happy birthday to the biggest United supporter I know, Matthew Wagstaff, says Felix French. Happy birthday, Matthew. And it's not the players, it's the system to protect the defence line, which is not the Man United way, says Kedar. Our forwards are deprived of the ball. Spot on. We can only keep saying it so much. I predict, actually, I'll make a prediction for you, shall I? the mainstream media and ex-players have now started talking about how we overprotect Maguire and Lindelof. How many more weeks do you think it will take for them to realise that Bruno, Rashford, Martial, Cavani, Greenwood, Dan James don't play well in these games because they're being deprived of the ball, and it's not their fault? I wonder how long it will take for. I guarantee they will figure it out. I wonder how long it will take for them to figure it out, because we've been talking about it for a long time. It's very you don't get one without the other. You don't overcompensate to defend and look after your centre-backs and then your forwards play well. That can't happen, because half your team's doing defence and the ball's never going to get up there. So you can't have one without the other. But as I said, really enjoyed the show tonight. Doesn't this all boil down to managerial coaching skills, says Hunter? In those games against the traditional top six, yes, it does. But we know we can play differently. Mark, you're always talking about how all James does is put a shift in. Isn't that what Park Ji-sung did? And he was lauded by Sir Alex and co. I think I tell you what, you're a very, very brave person to put that on a super chat, Yaz. He says his name's Yaz Chats. I'm tempted to say Yaz Chat shit. Ji-sung Park was a footballer. He actually had ability. I think that I don't want to talk about individuals tonight. Stego says it's my birthday. Give me a shout out. Ji-sung Park could play football. He had 3 lungs. He could run anywhere, but he could play football. He was a technically good footballer, and he wasn't super fast like Dan James. So he didn't have pace to burn to get him to make him look. You know, Dan James' game is very much about pace. Ji-sung Park wasn't about pace, but he could run forever. But he was a good footballer as well. I personally think Dan James is a very limited footballer in relation to passing, moving, triangles, positional play. I think Dan James is a very fast player who, if he's got space, he can score a goal and he can put a cross in. But to compare Dan James to Ji-sung Park, I think Ji-sung Park could play football. I think he was a very good footballer. And he had to be able to play football because he wasn't about pace. So I think that's a bit disrespectful, really. Really hope Bruno's able to talk to Ollie about tactics in these games. Would rather lose in the last minute than sit back and defend. Love the show, mate, says Josh Clark. Well, thanks everyone for watching. Please smash a like on the video, by the way. We're nearly at 2,000 likes, so please smash a like on the video. I do love these shows. I know it's not always easy, because I know not everyone always agrees with everything that's said. But nobody said it was easy. And the whole point of progression and understanding and being passionate is to talk about difficult things, and I think we've done that tonight. And not everyone's going to be happy with some of the things I've said, and some people will be happy with them, and some people will be very happy with some of the things they've said in the live comments, and that's just the way it is, because we've all got different opinions, we've all got different ideas. I ultimately think that this will all be down to the summer. Whether Solskjaer gets a contract, which I think he will, and then whether he gets backed, which I think he won't. And I think next season, I'm very worried that next season Ollie's going to head the way that Mourinho did, because he's in exactly the same position Mourinho was 3 years ago, virtually the same points behind Man City after 26 games, with virtually the same points that Jose had in second, and we finished second, and then he was gone by Christmas because he didn't get backed. That's my worry. Let's see what happens. If we played one of Fred or McTominay, we would have lost yesterday because we do not have a true number 6 and our defence is still shaky, says Hamid Mirza. I just think Bruno should have played, mate. I think Bailly should have played. That's the one. Eric Bailly should have played. Forget McFred. If you want to play McFred, that's fine. But if you play Bailly, McTominay can get forward a bit. They were up against fucking Giroud. They weren't up against Neymar. They were up against Giroud. And we had 4 players around him. It was overkill. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you subscribe. We're on the road to 1 million. Take care. Stay safe. And I'll see you in the morning at 10 a.m.